The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke. When some were talking about the temple, remarking how it was adorned with fine stonework and votive offerings, Jesus said, "All these things you are staring at now, the time will come when not a single stone will be left on another. Everything will be destroyed." And they put to him this question. "Master," they said, "when will this happen? And what sign will there be that this is about to take place?" "Take care not to be deceived," he said, "because many will come using my name and saying, 'I am he,' and the time is near at hand. Refuse to join them. And when you hear of wars and revolutions, do not be frightened, for this is something that must happen, but the end is not so soon." Then he said to them, "Nation will fight against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there will be great earthquakes and plagues and famines here and there. There will be frightful sights and great signs from heaven. But before all this happens, men will seize you and persecute you. They will hand you over to the synagogues and to imprisonment, and bring you before kings and governors because of my name. And that will be your opportunity to bear witness. Keep this carefully in mind. You are not to prepare your defense, because I myself shall give you an eloquence and a wisdom that none of your opponents will be able to resist or contradict. You will be betrayed even by parents and brothers, relations and friends. And some of you will be put to death. You will be hated by all men on account of my name, but not a hair of your head will be lost. Your endurance will win you your lives." The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise you, Lord Jesus Christ.
So my brothers and sisters, we come to the end really of the liturgical year. Next Sunday is the Feast of Christ the King. We'll celebrate First Holy Communion here in the parish. Lovely celebration where children who have been preparing for 6 weeks or so and many other sacraments prior to that will finally receive the Lord in Holy Communion. A beautiful celebration, and we look forward to that next Sunday. You can see in the readings today that the Church is, at the end of the liturgical year, giving us readings that speak of the end of the Church's life, the Church's pilgrimage of faith. And the Lord's words, Jesus' words, are somewhat doom-ridden. All sorts of difficulties to come. He's not promising better times. He's not saying that as you progress, the Church will bring about a transformation of the world. People will get better. Everyone will love God. There'll be more human rights respected. In fact, quite the opposite. The temple will be destroyed. For the Jews, this is a huge thing. For them, the temple symbolized the meeting of heaven and earth. They adorned it that way. Their symbols inside the temple spoke about the Garden of Eden even, and the cosmos, the place where God is worshipped, and the only place on earth, in fact. And Jesus is saying that this place where God dwells, representing the universe, rendering homage and worship to God, will be destroyed. And it raises a question for us as Catholics, as Christians. Will there be something analogous, something similar for us as Christians at the end of time before Christ returns? Quite possibly, yes. The Lord already in these words is warning of wars, kingdom against kingdom, nation against nation, earthquakes, plagues, famines, fearful sights, signs from heaven, and enormous persecution. This is not so-called good news, as we would normally say, fairly stark in its prediction and prophecy. And there at the very end, Jesus gives us all that we need really to be able to navigate. And I want to speak about that this morning. Your endurance will win you your lives. You will be hated by all men. We're not quite there yet. Christians are not hated by all men just quite yet. But that's coming. And we will be imprisoned, put to death, and even handed over to synagogues. And that might not be entirely symbolic, not just other forums and religious forums. That might even be synagogues, where Christians are indeed persecuted by their elder brothers, the Jews, again, before the return of Christ and before the mainstream conversion of the Jews. This has been summarized, these teachings of Christ and other mentions in the Gospels of the Lord himself and from the book of Revelation, St. Paul's letters to the Thessalonians, all the different scriptures which speak on the end times. This has been summed up in the Catechism of the Church, the modern day official formal catechism. Let's just have a quick look at what the Church is saying authoritatively as its interpretation. Not just one saint here or there, not just one mystic, or not just certainly one priest, but what is the official teaching of the Church on what will happen as we approach the end? Paragraph 675. Before Christ's coming, the Church must pass through a final trial that will shake the faith of many believers. A great trial. The persecution that accompanies her pilgrimage on earth will unveil, quote, the mystery of iniquity, unquote, in a form of religious deception, offering men an apparent solution to their problems at the price of apostasy from the truth. The supreme religious deception is that of the Antichrist, a pseudo-messianism by which man glorifies himself in place of God and of his Messiah, the true Messiah, come in the flesh. The Antichrist's deception already begins to take shape in the world every time the claim is made to realize within history that messianic hope which can only be realized beyond history through the eschatological judgment. The Church has rejected even modified forms of this falsification of the kingdom to come under the name of millenarianism, especially the intrinsically perverse political form of a secular messianism. So we can recognize by reading that second paragraph of what I've just read that this Antichrist and this religious deception will most likely reveal itself by man's attempt, especially through politics, to create a kind of salvation on earth, a utopia on earth of some kind. Some figure who arrives and promises salvation here, down below, apart from Christ. And that this will be a religious deception, not just a political one. And many believers will fall away from their faith because of it. And it is that of the Antichrist, beginning probably with ideology and finishing with the arrival of a figure, a person, a man. There, my brothers and sisters, we ourselves must be, in these days, in these times, very on guard against such things arising. Figures that promise salvation through politics, and figures that promise a kind of spiritual salvation that might look like Christianity on the outside, but is in fact from the devil on the inside. Just recently, only a few days ago, there was a terrible happening, a scandal in fact, in one of the prominent churches in New York, where a famous American priest, he's a Jesuit, Father James Martin, well known, was praised and promoted by Pope Francis numerous times, was made an official person of prominence in the Vatican Communications Office, invited to speak at international events run by the Vatican. This priest, just a few days ago, conferred confirmation on a celebrity figure in the United States, a news anchor for ABC News, who is in an open homosexual relationship, so-called married, quote unquote, to his husband, quote unquote. And that husband acted as a sponsor for this celebrity news anchor as he returned, so-called, quote unquote, to the Catholic faith, and was confirmed by numerous priests, of which one of them was this infamous Father James Martin. Celebrated, videoed, sent all around the world on the internet, as if this is all allowed now, all approved of, and there'll be essentially no consequences for such a blasphemous and sacrilegious action. When you see such things happening publicly inside the church with seemingly no recourse to discipline and correction and clarification and denouncement of this action and error, yes, it raises questions when the church cannot be clear about such things and refuses to speak on such things for the sake of the sheep, when the shepherds not only do it and allow it, but go silent on it because they don't want the problems and the so-called controversies. Yes, where are we at when so many among the faithful will be led to conclude from that, because it was done by this infamous priest, that somehow this is the position of the church officially now, by the Vatican, even by the Pope, when there is no public denouncement of such a blasphemous and sacrilegious act, using a sacrament to promote homosexual so-called marriage. When the so-called husband stands there acting as the sponsor for the other one who says they're returning to the faith. Maybe this is part of the religious deception that the Catechism speaks of and Jesus has warned of. The abomination of desolation. When you see such things set up in the temple of God, know that the end is near. Now we don't know. I don't know. We don't know. But when the church can't be clear on human sexuality and defend the faith at this level and its moral teaching, it gives the impression to the world that we don't know much about these things and we're willing to compromise with their principles because they might be right after all. And if the church is confused on fundamental matters of sexual morality and human nature, maybe she's confused and wrong about other things. Maybe the church is wrong about abortion. Maybe the church is wrong about euthanasia. Maybe the church is wrong about contraception and IVF and fornication and cohabitation and remarriage. And you can list out every moral doctrine that the church is controversially rejected on. And there the faithful begin to wonder, maybe if the church can allow these things and not correct it, maybe we're changing finally. And she's going to change on the other things. And then you see people begin to wonder, maybe the church has the power to ordain women. Maybe we can have a female pope one day. And maybe she's even wrong about Jesus Christ, that he may not have been God and divine. Maybe she's wrong about the Trinity, and maybe it's just one God and there's been some confusions along the way. Maybe she's wrong about the true presence of Jesus in the Eucharist. All these things stand and hold together, or they all fall together. The truth is the truth, and the church has a charism to infallibly transmit these things to us, or she doesn't. And if she doesn't, then everything is up for grabs. And if we have false prophets, wolves in shepherd's clothing like Father James Martin, and he's blessed other homosexual unions publicly, he's blessed other so-called married same-sex partners publicly. If he gets free license to roam the church and destroy souls, and there is no shepherd in the church who will correct him, or very few, so tiny is the number that say anything, are we not in a very, very unique time in the church's life? And are we maybe in a time where we are beginning to see the apostasy, the falling away from the truth by a religious deception? Pretty easy to recognize the religious deception when it's outside the walls of the church. Harder when it seems to be inside the church. A virus, as it were, a vine growing up on the trunk of the church and suffocating her. And allowed to do so because not only of approval of errors by some, the toleration of errors by those who should know better and who have a responsibility and a duty to speak the truth given to them and laid on their shoulders by Christ. Is maybe this part of the rise of the Antichrist? That not only are there ideologies abroad that deceive men into thinking that God doesn't exist and their man can save himself according to his own lights, all of that a manifestation of the Antichrist, no doubt. Pope Benedict the 16th said so. And they're the political systems that run in that way alongside and from those ideologies. Part, yes, of the rise of a spirit of Antichrist. But maybe the religious deception is where you end up with a counterfeit church. The devil loves to ape God. He imitates God or tries to. When you have inside the real church, where the real faith does exist, with the real means that Jesus has given for the real salvation, the greatest danger would be that inside that very mystery and inside that institution, a parallel faith is set up which deceives believers and leads them to an apostasy, but an apostasy where they don't realize they have apostatized. They still give a head nod to Christ, but have essentially rejected the power of the religion. St. Paul speaks about that happening in the end times in his letter to the Thessalonians. Those who have the outward, external trappings of the religion, but deny its power to truly save, who have another morality and believe really in another kind of mystery, man's compassion, man's tolerance, man's warmth of goodwill. These are the signs of the believers in this false church. Greenies who put the planet ahead of salvation of souls. Those who are more concerned about more human things than truly supernatural things. The inversion of the priorities of the church. Maybe these things are the signs of the Antichrist abroad. For us, if we are, as Jesus says, to endure faithfully and be saved, yes, we need fortitude and hope. I spoke about that a few weeks ago. But underneath our fortitude, our perseverance, there's one thing I think that we need, which sustains these things in a true way. And that is a personal encounter with the real Christ and to know his love for us personally. To have met him in a real living faith and to know that he loves us. He loves me and has called me to follow him. This makes all the difference. If I have met Christ on the inside and know personally that he loves me. There, my brothers and sisters, this must be in us if we are to endure. If we have to be on guard and discern carefully and reject the compromises of our time, the false compromises, the way for us to have light is to be very close to the one who loves us and to know that he's attentive to us. He has our back and will carry us in his hands. He knows our sufferings and our burdens, our anxieties, our worries, our good times and bad times, and we can go to him. Even if we are failed sinners, we struggle along and we limp along, that we know that we are loved and we always have refuge in God and in the Sacred Heart of Jesus. If this is a refuge we can go to, no matter what befalls us personally in the church, globally today, there we will return and go there to find our hiding place. And if we are to endure, we must go there regularly and every day to put our head on the breast of Christ, close to his heart, and there, like St. John, listen and receive. There, my brothers and sisters, our Catholic faith. We all know the external rituals we have. We all know the morals it calls us to live by, the things we must profess. All of that, though, should be underpinned. And if we are to persevere, it must be rooted in this knowledge, affective knowledge, not just rational knowledge, but a personal, affectionate knowledge in my heart and my will that Christ loves me, has died for me, that it is good that I exist. He will always look after me. I can always go to him. And it doesn't matter so much if I have faults and failings, imperfections and sins, as long as I go to him for my salvation and I rely on him and depend upon him each day, facing him personally in a quiet, contemplative prayer that feeds me and my soul finds its rest, and God strengthens me to keep going because I know that he loves me and looks after me. No concern of mine is too small for him. He knows and notices what I do and how I strive, and will always carry me to bring me to this end, safely home to the shores of heaven. This has to be in our faith today. Otherwise, we will not last. We will fall away and be deceived. We will struggle when the persecution comes further, and we might give up out of fear or just despondency. To endure, only love and a love in hope and faith will endure. And we must feed those three theological virtues on the personal connection we have with the Lord Jesus every day, going into the Father through his heart, and the Holy Spirit taking us there. My brothers and sisters, we are in unique times in the history of the world, and they're the only sure thing we have as our hope and our faith and our love of God. Let us never lose it. Our faith is the greatest gift and treasure we have. Never lose the Catholic faith. It is the truth revealed by God, and we must hold to it with everything we have, and God is on our side, enabling us to do so. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit.